You know the story, now you're going to get to know the guys a little bit better. In today's episode of Aviation No Tie Downs, you're going to get to meet Truman O'Brien and Craig Beles in their natural environment. Get to learn a little bit more about how they got into aviation and get to see some of the sights and some of the things that they do on Vashon Island, including their radio show. I think you'll have a ton of fun. Stay with us. Hello, and welcome to Aviation No Tie Downs. This is where we bring you interesting stories of our shared passions for the people, the business, and the adventure of aviation.
We could have named our LLC, Brick of Gold, and maybe that would have been prophetic.
or three old guys sitting around the hangar on a Friday afternoon LLC.
That's what we decided to change it to after
and in fact, my nephew, after we had the crash, sent me an email and said, perhaps next time I could be a little more involved in naming of the LLC. I got interested in flying when I was 16. My older brother was taking flying lessons when he was in college. And I thought, oh man, I've always wanted to learn to fly. So I convinced my father to let me go out and start, not my mom, but my dad to let me take flying lessons. So I soloed at 16, flying a PA-12, Piper PA-12, stick, tail dragger, no radio. I mean, it was really basic airplane. So anyway, I did not plan on being a pilot for a living. And finally, at age 32, I decided that what I really wanted to do was fly airplanes. My wife said, you're crazy, you're too old. I got hired by an FBO in Seattle, went to work teaching ground school, and very shortly became a flight instructor. And in that first year, I got my CFI, II, MEI, ATP, and 135 checkout in 1 year.
Wow.
And taught full-time. And taught ground school. So I was.
It was all aviation all the time.
All aviation all the time.
My story is a lot shorter than Truman's. It all started in Milwaukee. I was 7 pounds 6 ounces. Oh wait a minute, that's the long story. That's the long story. No, for years and years I've been wanting to fly, but I didn't have the time and the money together. I had one or the other. And a few years ago I was at a party at a friend's house, and Truman and I were talking, and I said to Truman, I go, Truman, are you ever interested in getting back into flying? And you had commented that you just had talked to your nephew about.
My nephew, who had twin boys who wanted to learn to fly.
Cool.
So I put out the word. I knew a number of the pilots along here. I said, anybody know anybody who's got a plane? And it turns out there was a plane for sale, a hangar available. It was like it was meant to be. I had an instructor who wanted to be a partner in the plane, and it all came together.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
That was just a few years ago. I guess now it was about 4 years. 5 years? What happened to those years? Yeah, 5 years ago. And then with Truman's training, I was able to get my private license at the age of 70.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, and that in and of itself is part of the inspiration, right?
Yeah.
If you've got a dream, pursue it no matter what.
Absolutely.
So Truman, this is a little bit of a history of some of your flying endeavors
Yeah.
and some of your mementos and things. Why don't you point out a few of the highlights for us?
When you ask if I had mementos on the wall, I said, well, I really didn't, but I did have what my wife calls my hero wall
Yes.
at home. So I decided to bring it down to the hangar just so you can see this. But
Yes.
it's kind of centered on the shadow box. The top of the shadow box, that's all Vietnam, of course, and that's just the standard stuff that you get when you're in Vietnam. And this picture over here is a photograph of me next to an O1 bird dog where I was an observer and photographer.
Right.
So that's that one.
Yep.
This is I was the chief instructor at Galvin Flying Service for about 4 years. Galvin's at that time was the largest flight school in Seattle. I think I had 13 instructors that worked for me.
Right.
And a very large bunch of students.
Yeah.
Also during that time, one of my students, I was in his airplane, it was a Cherokee Lance. We had a fire in the airplane. quite a severe fire actually. And we were very lucky to be very close to Port Orchard Airport where we were able to land. But the cabin was filled with smoke. It burnt all the paint off the side of the airplane. It was quite a severe deal.
Wow.
But I wrote a little article about it, and that's what that is.
Yes.
After working at Galman's, I got hired by West Coast Air Cargo as their director of operations and pilot. And I flew off the beach up in Alaska in a DC-4, and these are pictures of that. We hauled one summer, the summer I was fluid as a captain, we hauled 750,000 pounds of fish off of that beach.
Wow.
2 crews.
Wow.
Flying around the clock.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I went to work for San Juan Airlines for a short time, and then was hired by Horizon. Flew the F-27, 40 passenger turboprop, and that was quite an old airplane. I had actually 2 engine shutdowns when I was flying the F-27. They were both precautionary, but we did come back in single engine twice on that airplane.
Yeah.
Then I got hired by Alaska. That was in 1987, and flew the 727 for about 5 years, right seat. And then I upgraded to captain in the 737, and that's my retirement from the airline.
Yeah.
I really am proud of this.
Yes.
After our crash, Craig purchased this 140 for me, and he had an inscription put on it, which even though I don't have my glasses, I think it says, Mount St. Helens, March Miracle, 2021, Captain O'Brien, November 665, Foxtrot Lima, which was our airplane.
And you've got
and of
humor.
course,
Yes.
of course, I forgot. Craig's wife, who is a horse person, by the way,
Yes.
got Craig this. It says, everything will kill you, so choose something fun.
Exactly.
And so we've chosen airplanes and horses.
And horses.
There you go.
Yep, that's right. Awesome. Well, this is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
50 years ago, we were still in, Truman and I were still in Missoula. That's where we got married, and I was in graduate school and he was back from Vietnam. So we were flying out of the airport in Missoula, and the people who worked there, who were also students, but very, very practiced and had high time, and they put together a mountain flying course. So we had taken that half a century ago, and so we had flown through some very rough areas and how to fly into airports that you can't turn around. You got to land. If you didn't do it right, you're screwed. So we had done that, and they had talked about landing in the treetops. So it hadn't occurred to me that they might have done that. But as soon as he said, we've got them, the helicopter is going to be trying to lift them out of there right now, and they seem to be mostly okay, they report. Yeah. And so it was like, oh my God, I have to call the net instantly. And then we start, calling our family.
We split up going, well, the most important thing was, who have we called, who have we freaked out that we need to call back? Like that was the big panic between us.
The radio people, not just of their radio show, but the one that follows that has a group of people on, and they all had been alerted to this disaster, and they were going to have to carry on by themselves the next day.
Right.
So, and I texted my wife the moment we got off the helicopter, and then I called her immediately, and her response, her first response was, we're sitting around here and we're trying to figure out who's going to play Truman and you in the movie. And I thought, what a response. She goes, I found out a half hour ago.
Yeah. So she'd been over it by then.
That's right.
Every summer on Vashon is the Strawberry Festival, and it's the classic small town experience, with the booths and the funnel cakes and all the things you'd associate with a festival. And Craig and Truman have been the MCs of the parade. They sit on the back of a flatbed truck with a couple of microphones. They're, and they're in their shorts, so you can get to see the whole pale leg effect. And and all the floats and the bands go by, and they just riff on, and they know everybody in the parade, so it's hey, hey, and everybody's waving at them, and it's classic. And so that's just how embedded in the community they are. I asked if we could get the wreckage and put it on a flatbed truck and have it in the parade.
Yes.
Apparently that's not going to work out.
I've flown a little with Truman. He gave me my last biennial flight review, as a matter of fact, and highly respect him as a pilot. I could learn a ton from him. I'm a low-time pilot. I probably have, I might have 500 hours, something like that, scattered over 40 years of flying, or more even now. I've flown with Craig once. I took him up in the RV, and
I've been friends with Craig and Lynette for probably 12 to 15 years. Originally we met on the passenger ferry going backwards and forwards to Seattle for work, and then just gradually started to spend more time together as friends. And then ultimately Craig and Rob started extra bonding over flying an aircraft, and so since that happened I have barely got a word in edgeways at any gathering or conversation. All aviation all the time, but you know, I married a pilot. I knew he was a pilot, so I kind of knew what I was getting into.
So there are a lot of sights to see on Vashon Island, but this one is not in the guidebook.
Rumor has it that this appeared shortly after I arrived on the island, but don't take that as gospel, believe me.
Well, you with your 9 lives, I kind of understand it.
It could happen. It could have happened. No, actually, there's quite a story behind this. One of the local fellows, there was an incident that they called the Maury Island incident. It was back in the late 40s, I believe, and it had to do with UFOs. And anyway, it's quite
kind of a
story.
Roswell type story.
Exactly. You'll have to look it up. It's very interesting. But shortly after that, or actually several years after that, a fellow had an old boiler that he was taking apart, and he said, "Hey, what would you think if I made a flying saucer for the airport?" And of course, everybody went, "Yeah, we got to have that on Vashon." So here it is. But it has lights. It lights up when the airport lights come up on in the evening.
Very cool. Yes.
Yeah, it's quite unique. But
and is there actually a little capsule in there? Can you climb into it, or
you can't?
No,
but
okay.
But I've seen kids playing on it a lot.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's really quite unique, though, I think.
Well, just one of the hidden gems on Vashon Island.
There you go.
I first got to know these guys when they got involved in our radio station, Voice of Vashon. They both have shows, The Morning Scramble. I'm sure you've heard all about that. And they've been involved really since the very beginning, and we've worked together on VOV for years. And then we just, became friends along the way.
Good morning. It is First Thing Tuesday morning here on beautiful Vashon Island, and you are listening to KVSHLP Vashon, your listener-supported island connection, where we're streaming live online at voiceofvashon.org. You can hear us on our app, which is also available from the website, or on the radio at 101.9 FM if you're here on Vashon. It is the Tuesday Morning Scramble with your host, Truman O'Brien and
Molly O'Brien.
Good morning, Molly. I see you're right on time this morning.
As usual.
We have some very special guests in the studio this morning.
Yep, we do.
We're going to get to them finally. They've been waiting patiently. We have in the studio my partner in crime and pal, Craig Beles. Good morning, Craig.
How you doing, Truman?
I'm doing good.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Glad you came in for us. And we have our very special guest is Teresa. Tell us why you're here.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be on with you today. It's a great pleasure. And we came to Vashon Island because I work for an aviation company, Lightspeed Aviation. And we make some really cool products. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But one of the other things that we do is we really like to bring a lot of important safety information and other interesting information that pilots are interested in to our pilot audience and our people that follow our channels and our blogs and stuff. And this year, for several months, we've been really focusing on a topic that's basically around surviving after an airplane crash. And we call it, basically you've made an off-airport landing. Now what? Because as pilots, we train to make a successful, what we call off-airport landing in the event, something's gone wrong. But then so often it can be in a place where search and rescue can take a while to get to you. And so to be prepared for that, now what part of it after you've survived. And so several weeks ago, there was this unbelievable news story that happened right here in the Pacific Northwest, where we're also headquartered in the suburbs of Portland. And I read about these two guys named Truman O'Brien and Craig Beles that had one of the most challenging, most difficult situations imaginable for a general aviation pilot. And when I saw the pictures of the airplane, I thought, oh my goodness, those whoever was in that airplane, I feel very sorry for their families. Only to now find out that these are two guys that walked away, like had a scratch. That was it. And so just an amazing story. And so we got in touch with you guys, with Truman, I think, first, or maybe, I'm not actually sure who got it first, but anyways, and said, would you guys like to participate in a YouTube video for a series we do called Aviation No Tie Downs, and really talk about the experience and the surviving and some of the things around that, because it's such an important topic for pilots, and because you guys can really, through your experience sharing that knowledge, really help the rest of the aviation community be safer. We're all always learning, right?
Teresa, you make it sound as dramatic as it actually was. I think Truman and I have a tendency to downplay it for our own mental well-being.
No, not at all.
No.
And for your families too, I'm sure. Because you want to fly some more.
Yeah, that's true. When I started flying, when I got my license, actually I think before I got my license, I purchased a pair of headphones, active noise reduction, and I researched the heck out of them, and I bought Lightspeed, and I've had it now for a couple of years, and I love them. Absolutely love them. So, you also make fabulous flight bags.
Well, hey, I really, really appreciate you coming in this morning, Teresa. It's been great fun, and been great fun having you on the island. I'm happy to be able to introduce you to the island. And,
well, thank you. We love the island. Your island here is just idyllic.
Isn't it?
Yes, it's wonderful. The people and the restaurants, all of it, fantastic.
Thank you for watching this episode of Aviation No Tie Downs. Now, let's go flying.